Hello everyone, I am Tacit, and today I'm going to be going over the Gems of War event objectives for the Never Forget event, in which the Mumakus is added to the game. So of course we're going over a bunch of teams, as well as a bunch of Tower of Doom teams, but before we do get into everything throughout this week, I do want to mention one particular thing that you definitely want to do this week. While there's a lot of good things in SoulForge, and we'll be going over that at the normal time we normally do in one of these videos, one thing I do want to immediately bring to attention is Rope Dart. Rope Dart is arguably one of the best weapons in the entire game. It is really consistent at winning. Might even have one of the highest win rates of any weapon under player-owned control. Not necessarily on defend teams, but when you're specifically using it, not the AI. Main reason being is it does 1.5 billion things. It entangles... Oh, let's start from what it actually does. It eliminates all armor from an enemy and deals a bunch of damage to them. And then pulls them to the first position. So basically true damage to them, since it's also getting rid of all their armor. But it's also moving them to first. This is extremely relevant, because one of the perks that ends up getting is Entangle. So you get to shove it to first slot and then entangle it, meaning that the new first slot is now entangled, assuming they don't have immune. On top of this, it also has automatic extra turn, and even has some board control. And you're getting extra turn with that board control. So normally like a 3 red destroy might actually be a backfiring thing, because you destroy 3 red and then the enemy gets a good board, but it's still your turn because of the extra turn. So you're getting the 3 red mana and you're getting a new fresh board, at least, or 3 tiles being moved that could potentially give you a 4 times match, a 5 times match, and similar things. It is a ridiculously good weapon that you can slot onto pretty much every team. It's not the best option for every team, but it is a usable option for pretty much any team. And definitely a highly, highly advised weapon to not leave without, as you might not be able to get this thing for about another year if you don't get it today. So if you're doing anything this week, get Rope Dart as far as Gems of War. But anyways, let's go over everything else. So let's start from the top and start with the troop. Technically 2 troops. We do have one in event key drop table this week. But first, let's start with Mumakus. Mumakus, you can stock up on a bunch of green-red, though you might not want to overbuy it too much, as you are going to be able to get a bunch of copies of him from opening event keys if you're going for the legendary. As far as the troop is concerned, it destroys a row, deals a bunch of damage to the first 2 enemies, and is boosted by its life. This has an issue of many life boost ratioing troops, and that the boost ratio isn't high enough. Compared to things that boost ratio off of armor and do damage, is basically like he's already damaged, as he will only do 1 additional damage for every 3 life, whereas if there's an armor equivalent of this, it would be like 2 to 1, 1 to 1, or something similar, and would have a way better ratio. Obviously, it's a lot harder for it to end up taking damage on its life, but it's already starting at such a lower state that it pretty much already is damage in a sense, and it just isn't doing enough damage to really justify using in most situations. So there's already plenty of things that can hit first 2 slots pretty good. And we don't really end up needing this for pretty much anything. It's just going to be another upgrade to the Kingdom. The Kingdom does end up reaching 27 star, though most people are going to stop at 26. But it is possible to get to 27 if you have everything maxed, 4 max pets, and of course the thing that most people probably won't do, upgrading it to 18. There's really no point in doing that. It's just a waste of your deed books in the current state of the game. So it's pretty much stuck at 26, like pretty much every kingdom in the game. So nothing too different here. However, it is possible for it to reach 27 as of this week with the 2 new troops, or at least up to 26 if you don't want to do the other upgrade. With that being said, of course, as I mentioned earlier, we do have a new troop, or technically 2 new troops, Mumakus and the new legendary that's in the event key drop table. So let's go take a look at them. First, let's go over to all of the Pridelands troops. So first, let's go over to the section of Pridelands. Do it by base rarity just so it's a little bit more organized, and click show all, though I believe we own everything here. But anyways, as far as event keys are concerned this week, I would advise opening at least some. You can get a pretty high start kingdom, but more importantly, there are a few options that are kind of worth picking up. Most notably, as far as newer content, we have a new legend. So where's the guy? Right here. First Claw Maahes. So this guy is new. He's not particularly good, but he is new. He eliminates a bunch of attack and armor from the first 2 enemies, boosted by my attack, and gives a bunch of mana to all other allies. The bigger effect being the mana gain. So of course you could multiple up on him. I end up getting 3 in case I need to for whatever reason. I highly doubt there'll be a gimmicky team that triples up on him. But if you really needed a denial of attack on the opposing team, I guess you could. But yeah, he feeds a bunch of inconsistent mana to all their allies, and just constantly keeps draining down their stats. Obviously this can never kill them, because it's reducing down armor and not HP. So once they reach 0 armor, they still have all their HP value. So not really doing anything in that regard. But if it ever is going to be used, it's probably going to be used for its elimination of attack, for a relatively quick attack reduction. It does get to gain a bunch of attack itself, gaining 2 attack when matching red gems. However, this isn't applied to your whole team or to anything like that. It's just simply to itself. which is pretty underwhelming. I don't really see this being used in pretty much any circumstance. He does have an interesting mana thing on his ability, but it just doesn't do enough follow-up to really justify using it compared to other options in the game that can just do damage. However, it is still a okay drop table I'll end up going for, most notably Ubistet. Umanif's not too bad either, but if you want to take the gamble of 1 and 3 of getting Ubistet, Rope Dart Ubistet is a very, very, very strong combo. I believe we even show it with a couple of the teams here, at least one of them. That will be going over for all the teams, but basically just throw down Rope Dart, Ubistet, and you just kill an entire team. This works for most game modes, assuming you do not have immune to insta-kill. So, for example, you can't run it for the current Tower of Doom, as the Doom itself has immune to insta-kill. It'll do a lot of damage to it, but it will not end up killing it. As far as things that are not in the drop table here, let me just double check. I believe it is just the 4 faction troops plus... Actually, it might just be the 4 faction troops now that I'm looking at it. But yeah, every single thing that you see here except the 4 faction troops are in the event key drop table. So pretty much everything. Just the standard ones are not. Of course, the faction troops are never in the event queue drop table. But yeah, overall, it's a okay week to end up opening for. A lot of the lower rarity stuff just isn't that good. Although I shouldn't say that. There are a few like Rashka Free Blood and such, but they're not used that often. They're mostly used in like gold farming teams, and even then they might be a little bit too slow. But for the most part, you're mostly event key opening for maybe a Sakima. I still feel like there's no meta that's really around her, but in premise, she's pretty good. She has a damage poke and then can skull poke onto it. So for example, let's say the first slot has 20 HP remaining, and you want to go skull spam the second slot. Well, you can. You can just kill out the first slot with her ability, and then all the skull spam hits second. I don't feel like she gets used too often relative to how decent she actually is, and I personally like never use her, despite her being a pretty good troop. The biggest issue I feel like is with her convert. The convert just does not synergize with much in the current state of the game. It never really has. Obviously, there's more synergy over time, but I don't know. I don't think anyone has really cracked like the exact thing to be able to use with her quite yet. As it's just a really weird convert compared to other converters. Also doesn't have like half mana star or something similar like some of the other ones, like Divine Shpala with that 40%. So it is a little bit down there as well. But overall, it's a decent option. But you're mostly looking for Ubistet if you're going for that or the Skull Spammer. So okay week for event keys, mostly just getting more content since we got technically 2 new troops in there between the Legend and the event troop. Anyways, in other news, as far as the event, of course, there's currently no campaign going on right now. It just ended the previous campaign, which means we have a Tower of Doom. Tower of Doom is a really great mode that you can get Forging Scrolls. Of course, these were a lot harder to get in the pass. The Forging Scrolls you can end up getting here. However, of course, with the Orbs of Forging now, as a December patch, we can now simply just bypass the Forging Scrolls almost completely, or completely if you get the major one, and you don't actually end up needing as many of these as you used to in the past. You generally only want to buy up to tier 4 to end up getting a weapon, though if you still want to go for tier 5, tier 6 for the extra little bit of scrolls, you could. Though I do not advise mass buying tier 6 anymore, as it's kind of pointless due to the new orb system, just kind of taking that as the new way of upgrading the weapon. So if you are going to go, just don't go any higher than tier 6, and ideally the 500 gems for tier 4 is the way to go. This is the final dagger weapon, so every single time we get a Doom event, we do get a new Doom weapon. If you've ever looked at these in Soulforge, they are very expensive to end up getting, so it is a good idea to get them during the events, as spending 500 gems for them during the event is way better than the, I believe, 2,000 diamonds that you have to spend after the event, and that's much better spent getting half a mythic than it is doing it on a Doom weapon in most situations. This is like one of the very few good ones. So normally on these, you generally want to get it, even if it's a useless one like this, simply because the 500 gems to do it, while also being able to get progress on the event, is way better value than trying to get it down the line when you need it for completionist purposes. But yeah, this is the final dagger. We are going to be getting rings next. We don't currently know what the rings will be doing, and we won't see what the first one specifically in-game until 11 weeks from now. So we got quite a while, but in 11 weeks, we will know officially in-game what the next ring does. Through the spoiler threads, we'll probably know when we get a patch. Next patch should be in the next few weeks. Could even be tomorrow. Who knows? There's a chance. But when we get the patch in the next few weeks, we should know what the rings will end up doing. And hopefully they're good, because honestly, we're getting some pretty bad Doom weapons. But this is the final one of the dagger, so we don't have to worry about these anymore. So that's nice. As far as the event itself, you generally just report back all the better rooms to your guild, all the fireballs, heroisms, unlock, all the normal stuff. And you basically just want people scouting, be able to communicate with your guild what all the rooms are. Make sure whoever's the furthest forward actually checks all 4 of the rooms and reports back all the rooms, or the better ones, or however you want to report back on it, so that everyone knows which ones to do. As this mode is not like Delves, even though it has Delve-like battles, where, like this battle you could find in a Underworld, it does not consume sigils the same way. Every single battle you do consumes a sigil. Whereas, of course, in Underworld, you have the capability of one sigil is the entire floor. But that's not the case here. Every single room is a sigil, so you only want to do the better rooms. You don't want to be doing the ones that want to give like a 1 extra armor boon or anything similar to that. They're just going to be a waste. So, unless you're scouting. So you basically just want to report back to your guild, do the better rooms, just keep progressing. You only really have to do it till floor 25. And by that, I mean floor 26, as in floor 25's completion. Doing so gives you an additional Doom Scroll every single time. And by Doom Scroll, I mean Forging Scroll, specifically a Flame Forging Scroll. So you can end up getting 25 from going all the way to 1 to 26 on floors 1 to 25. With 25th completion basically meaning you're finished. So if you see the number 26 here, you've completed the Tower of Doom event as far as all loot is concerned. You can still keep going beyond that point, however, just for a leaderboard, and leaderboard does not have any particular good loot. Just a little bit of your gems back and some dooms that you can easily just get upgraded with blue orbs there. Anyways, Tower of Doom. And we'll be doing that later tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll probably do almost all of our battles. Not all of our battles. Depends how far the guild has scouted. But we'll do a good majority of them tonight at our standard stream. Anyways, as far as other things that we have going on throughout the week. Tuesday, we have the faction event for Idrachi's Palace. Wednesday, we have the pet for Shadowhunter. I believe this is the first time it's had a Wednesday event. Either the first or the second. This pet has always been in drop table for about a year now. So, you know, it's been in the RNG drop table if you happen to be able to find it. However, I believe this might be the first time it's guaranteed on a Wednesday. So if you haven't gotten it within the last year, well, now's your time to do so. Anyways, Thursday we have a Sunspear class event. Sunspear, really good hero class. I personally feel like I haven't been using it as much recently, but still really good. As Tangle and Freeze on turn 1, which is always nice. As Perpetual Red Storm, which is pretty much like 99% of the reasons it's ever used. And it's a triple damage burning hero class. So, but it's mostly used for Red Storm in the current state of the game. If you're using Sunspear on your team, you're almost guaranteed using it primarily for its Storm. Secondarily for its Entangle Freeze with triple damage burning combination. So yeah, it's mostly just a Red Storm setter, and it does every single turn, so you don't have to worry about it. And as you can actually see in-game, because you can't always see all the Friday events every single time, but we do have Bounty Hunter this weekend. Unfortunately, I don't believe the troop coming in is particularly good. However, like with pretty much every bounty. However, the core strategy still stands the same for it, so... And we'll show that team in a moment once we get over to all the teams. However, there's a lot of things to go over in Soulforge. So, of course, I already mentioned Rope Dart, and I'll mention it again once we get to weapons. However, there's a lot of things going on in Soulforge that is not Rope Dart as well. So it's going to be really hard to decide how to spend diamonds this week, if you've been saving up a little. But High King Iron Gut, basically the best thing in the entirety of Delves. We have access to this. Of course, we had that newer option 2 that has 4 times Curse into an attack gain to High King Iron Gut, so he's even better than ever. Actually, I don't even think I set up one of those teams for it. However, we ended up getting a Bane of Mercy a couple weeks ago. 2 weeks ago at this point, I believe? 2, 3, somewhere around there. But a couple weeks ago, we ended up getting Bane of Mercy. And Bane of Mercy buffed High King Iron Gut even more than he already was. Not only does it 4 times Curse on turn 1, but it also attack buffs your first slot. And of course, who's going to be your first slot in that situation? High King Iron Gut. And the way that he works, for any of you that don't know, his Devour rate is based on his attack value. And one issue he normally has, 2 issues outside of Delves. One is he doesn't have enough attack value, and 2 is a bunch of stuff has immune to Devour. Well, Bane of Mercy solves both those 2 issues. Not only does it first turn 4 times Curse, so you'll be able to devour them, so you don't have to worry about their immunes anymore, unless they have that other perk, but for the most part, you won't have to worry about the immunes anymore. But not only that, but of course, as you can see right here, my High King Iron Gut only has 65 attack. Well, Bane of Mercy, that's going to give it like, what, 40-ish, 50-ish attack? And of course, in our situation, that'll be 100 attack. But even earlier on in the game, that will buff you like, what, 40 to like 60 or so, giving him a much higher chance to end up getting his first Devour. And in our case, it gives him a 100% chance after just doing Bane of Mercy already. So he's in a much better position than he's ever been. And he was already in a really good position. He's ran for most Underworlds. He could run for all the high-level Underworlds, any Delve he could be used in. But now he could be used pretty much anywhere. You can even run him for Explorer 12 if you really want to. So he's never been better in the current state of the game due to Bane of Mercy. So highly advise picking up this thing if you haven't already. Unless you're saving for like double Ironhawk, though we don't currently know the situation of Ironhawk. The Dino reworks next month, so we'll see what happens. Anyways, Mistralis, also amazing. Mostly used for Guild War. Don't really use much outside of Guild War. However, great Guild War option. Like everything that has extra turn, particularly Mythics, it's just good. Has auto extra turn. Gets to the biggest issue with it is it has a lot of random damage. Not only is its targets random, but the amount of times it hits from 1 to 4 is also random. But it has extra turn jumble board. It's one of the only few mechanics in the game that has extra turn jumble board. And it even has damage follow-up, so really nice. Very bad when it gets frozen. However, the main gimmick of why it's actually used, aside from its decent ability, is, well, other than it being elemental, which is also pretty good synergies there. but it's used for its enchant. It is the only 4 times enchanter from trait. So this is a great way just to get passive mana. Enchant is 2 mana per turn, meaning if you take a single extra turn, you're getting 8 mana every single turn, 2 per ally, assuming the whole team is alive and hasn't gotten dispelled or anything similar. And that's a lot of mana, 8 mana per turn. That's more than you can even swipe off the board many turns, so it gives you a lot of momentum when you're behind, which is why it's really good in Guild War. As if you're in kind of like a stalemate situation, or it's a bad board, or just kind of stalling the enemy, like skull distracting and such, well, you could just get your 8 mana per turn, 2 per ally, and that starts to stack up a lot of extra advantage over the enemy. This isn't generally used in like quicker kill teams, but is really, really good if you want to win more in Guild War. Which we just had it the other week, however, you can use the next Guild War and all future Guild Wars. Anyways, aside from that, I believe that was everything. So it's mostly just Mistralis and High King Ironga in that regard. However, of course, as I mentioned, do not leave this week without Rope Dart. If there is any one thing that has priority over everything that was just mentioned, it is getting Rope Dart. We have no clue when this thing will come back again, whereas these troops you'll be able to get in like a couple months from now. This weapon you might not see until 2024, so make sure to get it now, as there is a chance it quite literally will not be back until like late 2024 next year. So get it now, as it will not be around for quite some time, unless you want to spend like $5 if you get lucky off of one of those weekly things where it like offers it to you. But otherwise, you will not see it again until 2024 most likely, so get it now, as it's an insanely good weapon, and you'll definitely want to have it. Scrap together everything you can get for it. Aside from that, nothing particularly noteworthy. Just kind of standard weapons for filling out stuff, unless you want like one of the type weapons. But honestly, nothing's particularly good here as far as any of like the typings. It's pretty unfortunate. Rashkas seem kind of underwhelming in the current state of the game, with a few exceptions like Ubistet and such. But it's one of those that could definitely use a little bit more love, as they don't really have that many options. I feel like even War Gear has slightly more options, mostly because they got a whole kingdom as of recently. However, Rashka has not quite gotten the same treatment, as Pridelands kind of is their kingdom, and just haven't been getting as many new troops, and the troops that they do get, like this week, they're just not that good. So the meta for them hasn't really changed much, like, at all, ever. But they just have the good hero class for going for them. Anyways, we've been teasing the teams. Let's go start getting into the team. So let's start all the way from the top. I'm going to be showing a high, middle, and low rarity, though there are a lot of teams you can end up doing. Keep in mind, for Tower of Doom, you are allowed to use any colored weapon, unlike some of the other events like World Event, where you are restricted normally based on the coloration if the other things are. Tower of Doom is not the case. You can actually use a different colored weapon without being penalized at all. Unlike Guild War, where you have to run like a pure color team and you do get penalized, in this case, even though in Guild War you theoretically have the option to use a different weapon, but you get penalized if you do, there is no penalty in Tower of Doom for using a different colored weapon. So it is generally advised to do so. You don't have to. You can still use pure red team. I think my low rarity one actually is still pure red, but it is not required for Tower of Doom. So you can easily throw in, well, a Rope Dart in this situation. So here we're basically going a Zolgoth build. Harpy Mage is going to be your best friend mana accumulator for pretty much every single one of these. I highly advise getting it. Super easy to get as well. You just throw some shards at the Stone Song Airy faction and boom, you have it. Probably get it in a couple hundred, definitely under 1,000 unless you get super unlucky on it. And we're basically using this pretty standard Centurion Zolgoth team, where main premise here is Centurion ends up converting, creating a bunch of wild cards. Everything on your team gets full mana. You keep Zolgothing it down. You then get Centurion again, boom, and just keep doing that over and over again. Keep in mind, you cannot insta-kill the Doom, but that's why we have Rope Dart. You throw a Rope Dart onto the Doom. You then go and Skull Spam onto the Doom every single time. You insta-kill the Zolgoth onto the other 3 enemies. And between that, the Doom will be dead by the time you probably insta-kill them all with Zolgoth. And Harpy Mage is here for the mana accumulation, so pretty much just general strategy of just high level, or even when you reach the higher levels of the Delve, or not the Delve, of the Tower of Doom, just be able to kill out. The same premise does work for Underworld as well. Anyways, this next one, you can replace this out for a more expensive weapon. I went with a little bit of cheaper weapon, as this is a mid-range team for mid-rarity stuff. No mythics in this team. But you can replace this out with like Writhing Staff or something similar if you have better. But it's mostly just for a little bit of red, but you can switch it out for a better weapon if you so have. But it's basically Yalgoi Queen of Tanya team. Really good combination. I do feel like AoE options aren't the best for Tower of Doom. For the earlier fights, yes. You might even just want to run completely AoE options for the very early fights. However, the later fights, they do end up falling off. Like, for example, if you want to go like a Phoenicia Lava Dragon build or a Scourge of Honor build, you can end up going down that route, but they generally won't be able to go all the way to 25 unless you have really high stats. But if you do have lower stats, it might not work as well. It's kind of why we were going with the Yalgoi build here. One nice thing with this is it concentrates a lot of damage, and Yalgoi can normally double cast, so you can end up at least getting 2 of those kills while you're waiting on the rest of the AoE to come in to kill out the rest. And it just concentrates your damage a little bit more, just so you don't get damage pressured by the enemy. And again, we're just using Harpy Mage. Actually, I didn't even realize that at the time. but I think I ended up putting Harpy Mage on all 3 of these teams. It's just a really good mana accumulator. Big issue with red, like you have Merilith, you have Angry Mob, you have stuff like that. But one issue with red, if we go to red and power right here, we don't really have explodey options unless you want to go like Firebomb or something, which you can. Unlike one thing that's kind of interesting compared to that of Tower of Doom, or not Tower of Doom, compared to Tower of Doom is the actual mode we're talking about here. But compared to Delves, one thing that you can never do in Delves is Firebomb. The reason being is your progress is saved per battle. So if you have your Firebomb explode on the first battle, well, it'll be dead for the second one, the third one, so on and so forth. However, if you want to, you do have access to Firebomb, which is interesting. Firebomb doesn't do the same thing in Tower of Doom. Since every single battle is separate, if your Firebomb dies during the battle, well, you have Firebomb on every single fight, so you don't have to worry about it dying. So you actually can go down the Firebomb route. One of the routes that I didn't end up mentioning here that you can end up doing too, or as far as mentioning as in not in a team, but Fist of Zorn, Apophysis, or do we have access to the other one? Yeah, sorry, my bad. Apophysis is basically pointless these days. Fist of Zorn and Trignala, I mean, you have access to that combination, so if you want to go like all in skulls, nice mid-range team you can also use for that is that combination. However, one thing that you can also do, which is really funny if you've never done it before, spam Baldur. So this one's a little bit more of a balanced Baldur team, just so we're not just spamming a billion Baldurs. However, you can spam a billion Baldurs. He creates a bunch of skulls boosted by blue allies, and as long as you have a tank, like 3 allies and then hero tanking in first slot, either with a blue weapon or with Mang or however you want to run it. Oh, you could even run Rope Dart. But Baldur spam is really funny because he ends up creating 4 additional skulls for every single blue ally. And of course, you can just make your whole team blue allies. And as long as you're still using red, it is still pure red for Tower of Doom. So you can get around that way. But anyways, this one's just doing a Merilith mana accumulator, Harpy Mage for the initial start, Mang for the armor tier, so you can end up getting the extra attack value and then just clear everything out with Mang. And Baldur's here just for some skulls, but you can spam up on him. You can use the Empower Skull converters if you really wanted to. Like, for example, instead of a Baldur, you do have access to the one we were already just mentioning. The, gosh, I forgot her name already. I literally just said it. Like a Fist of Zorn or something similar. So you do have that path if you want to go down that route. Even just doubling up on them and just keeping the Baldur, however you want to run it. There's a lot of ways to do so. Anyways, next we have, so now we're starting to get into faction teams. Not Tower of Doom, but specifically faction. These are red-purple restriction for the Idraji's Palace that we'll have tomorrow for the Tuesday faction event. So for the first team, basically it's Phoenicia, quick kill. You can do this, pair this out with anything else that you might want to. Basically just AoE spam, as you kind of would with any low-level faction, just whatever best options you have is pretty much what you run. For the higher level range, we had to show it at least once. Rope Dart Ubistet. I believe we showed Rope Dart Ubistet last week too, but it was mostly in anticipation for the Rope Dart that's available now. So of course, yeah, Rope Dart, really insanely good. This is only one of many, many ways they can end up being utilized. But it's one of my personal favorite, the Rope Dart Ubistet. It's always been a really nice combo ever since he's released, and it's from the same kingdom. It was always meant to be comboed together, and it just works really good. It's one of the few intended mechanics in the game that, you know, actually has pretty good synergy, as they're both from the same kingdom. They were already meant to be structured together, and you just put a bunch of mana accumulations around them, and they'll just do everything on their own. You cast Rope Dart, this brings them into kill range. You cast Ubistet, that gets you a double kill. You repeat, get another double kill, and then you win. And you just rinse and repeat that until you kill out everything. Anyways, as far as pure faction, a couple different ways to run this, though the main premise is you always want at least one Hellclaw warrior in first slot. Gains a bunch of attack and life, and as with every faction, anytime that you can do a pure faction that gains life and attack, you can theoretically just solo it with just this. So this alone can solo the entire thing if you truly want to, so you're kind of already good to go. However, of course, you want to win a little bit quicker than that, so you need some backup behind it. So we're going to go with a mana accumulator here. Just creates a bunch of red and purple. This is not required, as you can also just triple up onto Indrajit itself. So this does a couple things. It curse burns every single time you take an extra turn, but more notably, it does a lot of damage. It deals a bunch of damage boosted by red and purple gems at a 1-to-1 to 4 random enemies, and this can multi-hit the same enemy, so if there's only 1 left, 2 left, it will multi-hit whatever is left. So I guess it do a lot of damage. There's already a lot of things, particularly mythics, that are like this, and having it as a legend is actually rather unique, as there aren't too many legends that multi-hit in a similar way to him. But not good outside of the concept of that, because, you know, Mythics just replace it out. But in the concept of a pure faction team, ends up working out pretty well. It's kind of like an AoE that can concentrate onto a single target, which is kind of nice. Almost like split damage in a sense, but slightly more damage. So kind of nice, since he boost ratios off of each one of those magic hits independently. So every one magic he has is theoretically, well, technically not. He has a weird range for his damage. So every magic isn't necessarily 1 extra damage, but it almost is. Anyways, so next, Sunspear class. This is restricted specifically to Rashkas from Pridelands, which basically just means nothing because almost every Rashka already is from Pridelands. However, pretty standard, just wipe them out with Dawnbringer. Still one of the few things Dawnbringer is good for, so if you have it, definitely use it for that. You can replace it out for a pretty much any red weapon, even Summer's Fury if you really wanted to. It doesn't have to be that. We have Sakima here, mostly just for damage output, in case they have the 100% revive thing, just to kind of clear it out, just so you don't need a stun or anything. That's mostly just a cleanup option. You can go with like a third spirit main or something similar if you so choose. It's mostly just there to clean up whatever might survive. And for bounty weekends, we of course can't show the exact team because the 4th troop does not currently exist. However, Ogress, Warrior, Tagraki, Corpse Mirror, still a really good combination for it. And pretty standard, just run them down with true damage, have a good tanky mana accumulator in first slot, and just have another true damager to help out Tagraki. And just put the bounty captain in the 4th slot, which of course currently does not exist until this Friday when we end up getting it later this week. But anyways, that's a rundown on everything that we have going on. If you still have any other questions, feel free to leave in the comment section below. I hope you all had a wonderful Easter if you celebrated the other day, and I will catch all of you guys later. Goodbye, everyone. Thanks for watching.